What happens when obsession and jealousy drive a woman to her limits? Delve into the mind of a yoga instructor whose deep-seated anger led to the tragic demise of Moriah Wilson, a rising star in the professional cycling world. This is the terrifying story of Kaitlin Armstrong, whose crime quickly turned into an international manhunt with a fugitive altering her face to avoid facing the consequences of her lethal actions. In the heart of this tragic story are three individuals whose lives intertwined under dramatic and fatal circumstances back in 2022. First, there's Kaitlin Armstrong, born on November 21, 1987, a yoga instructor and realtor from Austin, Texas, known in her community for her dedication to fitness and a holistic lifestyle. Armstrong's life took a dark turn due to her tumultuous relationship with her boyfriend Colin. Colin Strickland, born on November 7, 1987, also based in Austin, made a name for himself in the professional cycling world, not just for his athletic prowess but for his charismatic and personable nature. His relationship with Armstrong started when they met on a dating app in October 2019. Only 3 months later, Armstrong moved into Colin's house because her apartment had been flooded. The relationship appeared strong on the surface, yet it harbored underlying strains, as the couple would regularly split up, allowing for an open relationship where both were dating other partners. Kaitlin actually wanted to make Colin jealous, but this didn't seem to work. She even spied on his social networks and monitored all his communications with other people on his phone. Enter Moriah Wilson, born on May 18, 1996 in Littleton, New Hampshire, who quickly rose through the ranks to become one of the top competitors in her sport. Known to her friends as Mo, Wilson was not just a fierce competitor, but a beloved figure in the cycling community, admired for her tenacity and kind spirit. As a professional cyclist, she met Colin at a race in Austin, and the two ended up hooking up, but they simply remained friends when Mo left the city. Obviously, it didn't take long for Kaitlin to find out about this relationship, which drove her crazy. Despite Colin and her being in an open relationship, they somehow got back together after this episode with Mo. Now for the strange part. Despite this rocky relationship, Colin bought Kaitlin a Sig Sauer P365 handgun, as she claimed she feared for her safety when riding alone. He also bought one for himself, but then exchanged it for a 9mm Springfield. The reason he bought her the gun in the first place is because she had a warrant out for her arrest for refusing to pay a $650 bill for Botox treatment a few years prior, and thus was prohibited from purchasing a weapon. These three lives converged in a way that none could have anticipated, setting the stage for a sequence of events marked by jealousy and revenge. On May 11, 2022, Mo was staying at a friend's house in Austin as she was preparing for an upcoming race. That evening, she went swimming with Colin. The two went to grab a bite, and Colin dropped her off at 8:36 p.m., as registered by the electronic keypad of the house. At the same time, Colin texted Kaitlin to let her know he was coming back home after dropping flowers for a friend. A few minutes later, the silence in the neighborhood shatters. Tragically, these were the screams of Mo that you just heard. She had just been shot twice in the head, with a final shot in the heart. Who committed this senseless act, and how did the killer know when to find Mo? What Mo and Colin didn't know at the time was that Kaitlin had been tracking both of their movements all along. Remember, she had access to Colin's social media and phone. Thus, she knew where Mo was staying the moment Mo texted Colin the address. A few days before that, Kaitlin had also been following Mo on the fitness tracking app called Strava, which helps athletes track their cycling activities, and thus already knew Mo was in Austin. Surveillance footage captured Armstrong's black Jeep Cherokee circling the area where Mo was staying as the couple were having dinner. So, that evening, Armstrong, driven by jealousy and armed with the gun Colin had bought her, entered the apartment and ended Mo's promising life. This was a direct and brutal manifestation of Armstrong's escalating anger and jealousy. She even threw Mo's bike in the bushes as she was escaping, maybe to make it look like a robbery, or most certainly, to destroy everything Mo lived for. When Mo's friend returned and found her friend's lifeless body, she immediately contacted the police. It didn't take long for investigators to start piecing some evidence together. They first picked up Colin for questioning and interrogated him for 6 hours. When they showed him the surveillance footage from the neighbor's house, he clarified that the vehicle seen in the footage belonged to Kaitlin. The police immediately arrested Kaitlin for her outstanding warrant and started questioning her. However, a technicality made it impossible to keep her in custody, as the date of birth on the warrant didn't match Kaitlin's. She was then free to go, as the police didn't have solid proof to arrest her for the murder of Mo Wilson at that point. After ballistic analysis came back, it confirmed the casing found at the crime scene matched Kaitlin's gun. The data extracted from her phone also showed she had been tracking Mo's movements through the fitness app, and the GPS inside the Jeep confirmed her presence in the neighborhood as shown on the footage. After leaving the station, Kaitlin returned home to spend the evening with Colin. But the next day, she completely vanished. As it turns out, she sold her Jeep to a CarMax dealership and flew to New York, where her younger sister lived. On May 17, 2022, an arrest warrant was issued for Kaitlin Armstrong for the murder of Mo Wilson. U.S. Marshals arrived in New York to question Kaitlin's sister. Unfortunately, she had no idea of her sister's whereabouts. Airlines and airport authorities were contacted to confirm that Kaitlin had booked tickets to flee overseas. Strangely enough, that was not the case. Yet she was, well and truly, gone. Investigators later realized that just days after the crime, Kaitlin, using her sister's passport, boarded a flight from Newark, New Jersey to Costa Rica. This bold escape was planned with meticulous attention to detail, as she managed to evade initial detection by altering her appearance. Once in Costa Rica, Armstrong underwent plastic surgery for $6,350 at Ava Surgical Center, a desperate attempt to leave her former identity behind. She dyed her hair, got a nose job, and used makeup to cover any remaining traces of her former self. On May 25th, a federal warrant was issued for her arrest for unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. Armstrong's time in Costa Rica was spent moving between various hostels and adopting a low-key lifestyle. She had settled down in Santa Teresa, a small town in Punta Arenas province, located about 100 miles west of the capital city of San Jose. The difficulty for investigators was that Santa Teresa was famous for its yoga retreats, and lots of women could match Kaitlin's description. She truly attempted to blend in, even seeking employment as a yoga instructor under an alias. 2 U.S. Marshals who had been sent there initially struggled to locate her. Apparently, she was known on the island by the name of Beth or Ari, but investigators couldn't locate her. However, their persistence in finding this fugitive was relentless. In a clever ruse, they placed an ad on Facebook posing as a hotel manager seeking a yoga instructor. Kaitlin ended up answering the ad after a few days, which ultimately led to her location and arrest on June 29, 2022. Armstrong was captured in a modest hostel after 43 days on the run. At the time of her arrest, she had a Band-Aid on her nose and claimed it was due to a surfing accident. Investigators didn't buy it, as they soon found out she had undergone plastic surgery to change her appearance. Her arrest was not just the culmination of a high-stake chase across borders, but also highlighted the impressive coordination of international law enforcement efforts. Armstrong was extradited back to the United States, where she faced the full force of the legal system, ready to hold her accountable for her actions. On July 21, 2022, she was arraigned and pleaded not guilty to the murder charge. She was held on a $3.5 million bond. On October 12, 2023, while she was awaiting trial, she faked an injury, requesting to be transported to a medical facility. This is when she ran for her life, trying to escape. Fortunately, the officers were able to catch up to her and put her back in jail. On October 30, 2023, Kaitlin Armstrong's trial began. The prosecution laid out a compelling narrative, painting a picture of a premeditated act driven by a deep-seated jealousy. This was supported by digital evidence showing Armstrong's meticulous tracking of Wilson's movements leading up to the murder. Her car's GPS indicated she had been staking out the house for an hour before the crime. The ring bell camera from a neighboring house gave the precise time when Mo is heard screaming for her life. The ballistics experts showed that the bullets had been fired from Kaitlin's gun. Friends and acquaintances testified about Armstrong's growing resentment and anger towards Wilson, as she specifically told them she wanted to kill Mo. Armstrong's defense team challenged the prosecution's case on several fronts. They argued that the presence of Kaitlin's DNA on Mo's bike could have come from Colin riding the bike after he touched Kaitlin. The defense also pointed to the fact that their client hadn't been trying to flee the country, but was just in need of a vacation. Then, they claimed she had fled because she thought Colin had killed Mo and was out to kill her too. As you can see, the defense had to be outstandingly creative to face the overwhelming, albeit circumstantial evidence stacked against their client. The tension in the courtroom reached its peak as the jury returned with their verdict on November 16, 2023. After less than 3 hours of deliberation, Kaitlin Armstrong was found guilty of first-degree murder in the death of Moriah Wilson. The verdict reflected the jury's acceptance of the prosecution's argument that Armstrong's actions were premeditated and driven by jealousy. On November 17, 2023, Armstrong was sentenced to 90 years in prison, with eligibility for parole after 30 years. She's currently incarcerated at the Dr. Lane Murray unit in Texas, and her legal team has initiated an appeal process, which is currently ongoing. All our thoughts and prayers go to Mo's family.